All right, so we diving in. So I mean, you hit the rewind button back to what 2020, COVID. Everybody was trying to figure out their life at that point. It was everything was going good, and it came to a screeching halt. So I think that was just a moment where everybody had to figure out, like, all right, well, is this temporary? Is this long term? Obviously now we know it's long term, and having to figure out, like, well, what does church look like? What does church planning look like? I was just trying to get out the gate to launch a church. Epiphany, y'all are already doing y'all thing. So yeah, what was that like?
Yeah, that was a season for us. I feel like we had some wind in our sails for sure. We were riding high.
We had just kind of caught a nice little streak.
Yeah, we were kind of confident in kind of who we were going to be and how we were going, what plays we were going to run, and all of that, and really plotting out that year to say, all right, this is probably going to be a great year for us, just as a church and where we were at, in life at that point. And, it feels like at the drop of a dime, it all shifted. You know what I'm saying? So, but we started out COVID very strong.
Yeah.
So I will say that it wasn't a level of disorientation until I think we realized this was going to be long term. But I think those first couple of months, we ran on the adrenaline of new opportunities and seeing, this as a way for us to continue to share the gospel and all of that. We just didn't know we needed to be able to run a marathon.
Yeah, nobody knew. I mean, I think, for us, it was, man, we were just getting on the ground in Baltimore, and man, it was like, it was a little bit of a gift. I can say that now because, yeah, we didn't have the benefit of having to stop something and then like start it. So like we kind of came into this with this, like kind of having to rethink things. What was hard though was like trying to gain momentum with a launch team, and like even questions around like where we're gonna be able to launch, and we were planning. Yeah, exactly. We were planning a fall launch in that September 2021 is what we were planning. So by that time, stuff had started to open up a little bit, but it was still like people were just super cautious. So I never really felt like we had like the momentum I would have wanted.
Yeah.
But in the end, it ended up working out where we at least got a chance to get a decent start.
Yeah. And I think that the benefit in that season, it forced creativity.
Right.
Like I want to argue that the folk that adapted in their creativity in that season are doing fairly okay today. You
Right.
know what I mean? Just because there was a need for it. There was a need to continue to develop relationships virtually, continue to services as usual. I mean, so it was fun. There was I know it was a sensitive season. It was a lot of loss and all that kind of stuff. Amen. But it was really fun just to kind of explore some of those creative options. And then it kind of caused to ask the question of, after a year, we're like, oh, are we ever going back to church? Like what does church in this next season look like? So
yeah, and before we kind of jump into this transition that I think was really critical for all of us while we sitting here at this table, I want to just throw it over to Reggie. I mean, Reggie, you out in Texas, and I mean, it was almost like the pandemic didn't happen out there. You know what I'm saying? So like, you weren't here in Baltimore yet. So give us the skinny. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think, like y'all said, I mean, it caused a screeching halt for me, not necessarily what we were doing with the church. And I mean, Texas, it's its own little puppy. I don't even want to go into the politics or whatever of Texas. Texas is, we'll leave that alone. But for me, it was this wake-up call. COVID just woke me up and said, like, man, this next season of life, me and my family need to do something different. We need to be about something that's bigger than what we were doing there. And so it was a hidden blessing, just to kind of be able to take a step back and say, like, hey, this is my next season of life. So yeah, it was a beautiful thing.
I mean, that's a great segue, because I think that's really kind of where a lot of us were. Like, man, like we got to rethink all of this. And what's really crazy is, like, I mean, fall of 2021, we started in September. We're out the gate. We're doing decent. Everybody's feeling the impact of COVID, though. And then all of a sudden it was like, I don't know, maybe December, early December, maybe even late November. Charlie, you put out this tweet.
Yeah.
Or this post on Instagram about the Wu-Tang Clan and like church planners, needed to take a page out of the Wu-Tang Clan. I'm like, man, I wanna unpack this. Like let's talk about this, because even though like we had already launched and like we were just infant, I mean like just straight out the womb, I was still already having those thoughts of like, yeah, but something got to be different. We got to do something. So like, yeah, just kind of talk a little bit about that post and like your inspiration around like the Wu-Tang Clan and what you were trying to say.
Yeah, it was interesting because we had, we stopped services just like everybody else in this region, in March of 2020. We didn't regather in public together until September 2021.
Wow. Wait. So you stopped
March 8th. March 8th was our last Sunday.
Right.
So March 5th,
and then regather until
September.
That's like a year and a half.
Like 16, 17 months.
So as long as we had existed is how long we were
50.
digital.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but we never missed a Sunday. But we were able to maintain our core church and gather new people the whole time. Like, so we still did discipleship. We still did all the things the church is supposed to do. We just didn't meet together. But all of that to say, while we were in that phase and in that basement and going through what we were going through, I'm like, man, we had already seen the writing on the wall as far as church planting and discipleship. This can't work the same way. We're doing. Right. Most of us were getting transfer growth from other churches, but we came to reach new people and disciple people. So my thing was, this system we're doing church planting in is just not working well. And a lot of guys were starting and getting going, but then would fizzle out after a little bit of time. 10 people, 12 people, 20 people, 50 people, which is fine. But I knew that wasn't the dream most of us had in our heart and our mind. But what I was seeing was signs in hip hop or just in culture in general where people were collaborating together to get more on their return. And so it just hit me one day, like I'm listening to Wu-Tang and I'm like, these are 9 different rappers that made one group. Nobody understood it, but they had greater impact. And so I said, man, why don't church planners think like that? All of them are incredible on their own in the Wu-Tang Clan. So they've got their own careers, but when they come together, they're an unstoppable force.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to convey in that Instagram post, just thinking if you're a future church planter,
or a current one,
this might be something you want to consider as you're thinking about church planting. Like, don't go it alone. That was my emphasis. Not thinking anybody would actually respond to me, you know what I mean, the way you did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I saw the post and I immediately was like, yo, we need to talk about this. And what was crazy about it from a timing standpoint, like, again, we had just launched. We 2-3 months in. I'm about to go on my first leadership retreat with
that's
my
where you
team.
were.
Yeah,
that's
matter of fact,
Christmas time.
It was head of Christmas time, and because we talked on the phone, I was in Philly. I was in Philly. I got there before my team, and we had just had this whole conversation. I'm like, yo, Charlie, man, what you mean by this, man? What does this mean? I had like a bunch of questions because I was just, I was intrigued, and so
What was one of the questions? Like, what was the thing that initially drew you to that you had to go like, man, I need to.
Well, I think like I played on teams my whole life, so I understand team concepts. I understand like what it's like to be a unit, what it's like to collaborate. I wanted to know like what did he have in mind in terms of like church planners working together? Like what was the collaboration, and the thought process he had in mind? Yeah, I think my other question was just around, okay, yeah, how or what did Charlie have in mind? But then, like, what would it look like in Baltimore? Because, Charlie, you and I had already started forming our relationship, you know.
Right.
Like, I was following you guys before you planned it. We came, we started developing relationships. So we already had some relational equity that was building. I just wanted to know, like, what that looked like. So that was a couple of my initial questions.
And it was interesting because it forced me to go to the extreme of what I meant. And that's why, because we've done collaborations, we've done prayer gatherings, we've done
Right.
services together. Like not us,
Right.
but just in general, you see that kind of collaboration all the time. I was saying, no, I
More
think guys
drastic.
need to merge together or start a church planting team together before y'all launch or whatever. And then my other emphasis was in Baltimore specifically, we needed a flagship church that could create a hub to
Yeah.
generate more energy
Yeah.
behind reaching the city.
Yeah.
And so I used his language, knowing where he had come from. I used like, we needed a dream center, or we needed a turnaround type of. I used that kind of lingo
Right.
because I knew exactly what Josh would connect those two dots.
Right.
And immediately when I said that, he was like, I'm thinking the same thing.
Right. Right.
But but I hadn't heard anybody else reciprocate that type of energy around, we need a flagship church in our city that's going to really push the ball down the field and generate energy to
Yeah.
start this conversation.
Well, and then fast forward a little bit, because we'll have a lot more of that stuff that we can dive into. But just fast forwarding a little bit, like activator is one of my strengths and strengths finder. So when I get a spark, I'm ready to start running. So it was crazy timing because right around that time, or shortly after, I talked to you, Reggie.
Yeah.
And like you guys, like still having that whole like, man, we need to rethink where we are. And then you called me and was like, yeah, I think we moving to Maryland. I was like,
Yeah. No, it was actually the same week, maybe.
yeah,
You had
maybe,
just,
yep.
Charlie, what you posted out there, I guess you didn't know somebody was going to respond to it, but it was responding all the way to Texas because my wife was just like, yeah, I think we need to move back to Maryland. And I really felt that Maryland was a place where we would eventually be back as a family and love the culture, love the people, love just the energy of Maryland, especially this Baltimore area. So when Joshua started telling me that stuff, I was just like, man, something's about to happen. And I just knew it. I felt it. I knew something was.
Well, but
about to come.
then you threw me off and you was like, Vicky said, no, I want to move to Baltimore. And I'm like, wait, what?
Nobody
And-
want to come to
no,
Baltimore.
yeah, that's different.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
way
that is different.
Nobody wanna come to
that's way
Baltimore.
different,
Yeah.
And it just so happened that like I hadn't hired an associate pastor, Brent Storms, who leads my management team for Orchard, was like really pushing me to do that, and I just hadn't done it and was dragging my feet. But so I immediately said, hey, like Reg, well, man, there's some guys, man, we talking about some cool stuff, like maybe you should come and let's just have some conversation around, I don't know what this could be, but let's just get in the room together, and that's what we decided to do. But one of the things that I think was critical was just that 7-day fast. We said, no, let's pray and fast about this. So we committed 7 days before Reggie came to say, hey, we're going to pray and see what the Holy Spirit says to us individually. And then once we get in the same room, let's just, unpack it. And yeah, that was pretty powerful.
Yeah, it was interesting to see because that was kind of I sent the meme to y'all with that scene in Paid in Full. Now contextually it's incorrect because there was some backbiting there, but just the moment of like it just felt so. It was Chinese food in the wintertime, and we just talking and dreaming and laughing and joking and kind of expressing like what the Lord shared over that 7-day fast period, man. And it was powerful to see kind of what everyone wrote down individually, and kind of what we talked through collectively. So it was that was a moment, man. That was a moment, and it goes to mention that we're talking about January, where we're talking about a while ago.
Right.
You know what I mean? Where it was just like, yo,
Yeah, we actually connected in February.
the Lord is doing something crazy.
Yeah.
And is this really happening? And then Reg, if you can share even your moment, like, because you mentioned something towards the middle, was like, yo, we talking around something. Can you share that?
Yeah.
What part? What
So you was like, yeah. So what y'all? I mean, what we talking? You talking about some merge?
Oh, yes,
I mean,
yes,
what
yes,
exactly
yes.
is y'all talking about?
Yeah.
Y'all talking about like are we beating around the bush?
Because we hadn't made it plain.
We
It
had-
wasn't.
yeah,
It wasn't clarified. I think everybody was kind of like tiptoeing a little bit.
Right,
And Reg,
right
yeah,
the
but
edge of it.
if you could share that real quick.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, because like Trev said, we were all thinking about this, this time, and God had individually spoken some similar themes to all of us.
Yeah.
And we were sitting there listening and saying it and writing it on the board, and then all of a sudden I was just like, hey, we talking about coming together? Is this something that we're gonna do together?
And I was like, yeah.
Or this is a church service.
Yeah,
Y'all
yeah,
talking
yeah.
about church service?
And I was like, yeah, bro, we brought you all the way here from Texas, man. We trying to see what it is.
Because it took us a while though, because it didn't come out. It was like, so what? We need something. We need something that makes this thing happen. Like, so what are we doing? And I'm like, are y'all talking about like getting together? Well, what are we gonna get? No, merging.
Yeah, because churches don't come together that are thriving and independently doing their thing, and pastors don't. Yeah, that just doesn't happen.
Right.
And so when that moment happened, I think it was
that changed the dynamic in the room that night.
Yeah.
That changed the dynamic in the room. To get, you know what I mean, to actually look at it and perceive that.
Yeah.
Well, Reggie is great with the segues so far, so that's a great segue, I think, to wrap this, this episode up with just this one question, like, why merge? I mean, like, there's other things that we could do together. There's events, there's like, strategic collaboration in other ways. But why merge? I think that's a significant question that we should speak to.
Well, and we talked about this a little bit before, but not to mansplain this, but I think that would be the same question that was asked of LeBron, Chris Bosh, and Wade. Like, why are we going to South Beach? You know what I mean? Why? Like, it's unprecedented, even though it wasn't, because the Pistons did it. Well, multiple teams did it. But it was like, what's the point? Like, why are you doing this? Well, we're guaranteeing a win. And again, I'm not.
Right.
But we're guaranteeing a win. We're going to South Beach, and we're going with our friends.
Right.
At the end of the day, like, we're gonna enjoy this next little.
Yeah.
We're gonna win.
Yeah,
we're gonna be on the beach, and we're gonna be together.
Right.
Boy, I don't know. That sounds like a win to me.
Yeah.
You can even take out the chip for me.
But Trey, man, that's an excellent point, man. I think that definitely shifted the landscape, and it's having a huge impact to this day. With what LeBron did, and that's kind of what you were saying, Charlie, with what Wu-Tang did. And I think, like, man, the piece about we don't have to go down the traditional road, which is all LeBron was saying. Like, we don't have to go down. No, there's actually other ways. Now, you might not necessarily agree with it, and it might not be your thing, but there's another way to go about doing it. And that's all that you were saying, Charlie, and that's all I was, like, amening, But then the fact that, like, you could do it with your friends, people you like, people who have similar outlook and philosophy, and in a place where we all want to be. Now, hey, listen, don't say nothing bad about Baltimore. You know what I'm saying? Like, it might not be a sexy destination, but we want to be here.
Only we can say something.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But we want to be here, you know what I'm saying? But it's a place where we want to be. Right. And then I think at the end of the day, man, exponential impact can happen. When we just push all our chips to the middle of the table and say, like, hey, man, we're gonna sacrifice ego and man, I love this brand or this thing over here for kingdom impact. And that's why we feel like, we call it a merge.
That's right.
Yeah, and I feel that especially in church planting, oftentimes when you have a lot of leaders at the table, oftentimes there's a lot of egos at the table also. That's one thing. But that's not the point of this. The expectation is, all right, well, you go here and make impact, you go here and make impact, you go here and make impact, you go here and make impact. Instead of, why don't we collaborate? Why don't we team up? What if we all came on one side? Because that's why it ends up all this. Man, I gotta hire someone to do this. I gotta hire someone to do that. Because developing leaders and disciple making when you're playing the church is what we say, like fixing an airplane mid-flight.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. And why not be able to have a larger impact earlier on for long-term health and long-term stability?
And I think that, double the impact is very powerful, and just being able to make impact faster. And also just the fact that when you say that, egos are dying and all that, but the thing that became clear was everyone's different gifts. Everyone's different passions, and all these passions and gifts lined up to where we wanted to go ultimately, and to make a bigger impact in the city of Baltimore, and join in with folks who are doing things in Baltimore, right? But all of our gifts lend to each other.
Yeah.
And I think that was the beauty of it, that it just made sense to come together because each passion was just different.
Yeah.
Around the end of last year, I posted a thought on IG that I had been wrestling with for some time about how church planners should take a page from the Wu-Tang Clan.
When I read the post, I immediately messaged Charlie and said, yo, I need to unpack this thought because I'm feeling like there's something more here for us to explore.
I felt like what the Wu-Tang Clan had done was create a movement that church planners could learn from. They decided to go against the grain of hip-hop, and church planners needed to go against the grain of how things had always been done. It was bigger than them, and it's way bigger than us.
And I'm just a why not person. I came to Baltimore to do something bigger than just plant a cool church. You know, we're in a new era. We have to think differently and be willing to sacrifice the ways of the past. I'm asking myself regularly, what does it look like for us to chart a new course?
Ultimately, we decided to take a page from the Wu-Tang Clan playbook, and we're gonna push all our individual chips into the middle of the table for the sake of Baltimore. We could do way more together than we could separately, and we want to change the narrative of the church in the city of Baltimore.
So here we are, not concerned about individual brands or ego. I mean, we don't even have a name yet as we've come together, but it's not about the name above the door, but the name above every name.